We're going to start off with General Crosby is going to talk to you about the finance part and discuss where the chapter is and some of the procedures that we have in place.
Good morning, everybody. Tim Crosby. I'm your treasurer. We're going to bump through. Who's got the slides? I got to do that? Or they do? Okay. Next chart. There we go. Before we get into this, really, Colonel Freeman was up here talking about fun run. That's like jumbo shrimp. I don't do that anymore. In fact, I've taken up that British motto, officers don't run, it scares the troops. So that's what happens when you get old and retired like me. I got several charts here. We're just going to bump through and talk quickly about the status where we are financially. Overall, pretty good shape. The foot stomper of this is remember that we're not separately, independently incorporated. We have to have your reports by the 31st of March. So if you haven't turned it in, it's late. And it jeopardizes us getting our taxes filed and all that stuff for the corporation. So we really need you to stay on top of this and get these turned in on time. It's critical to the overall organization because we are one organization made up of all the chapters. Okay, next chart. Planning and budget cycle. We just had our National Executive Board meeting on Tuesday and went through, and what we do is we review the authorizations and a request for funding consideration. We disapprove the funding, same old stuff. But the blue line is where we are in the process right there. We've done all the other things. We got the request in for next year. The budget's allocated, and of course it's all dependent on how we do financially for the year. Next chart. Overall, the foundation is in excellent condition. Calendar year 15, that's what I briefed to the National Executive Board, was the results of the audit at the end of the year. A little over $6.5 million total. 2.9 million sales for the 16 convention. That's huge. That is huge in the times of uncertainty when we're restricting who can come and can't come and all that. For industry and everybody to be that proactive and that forthcoming really says a lot about what they think of the value of this forum is. Second highest emergency fund. We've to protect the organization. We've made a change. It was last year done that we take the best out of the 5-year average of where we need to be and double that for our emergency fund. We've got a floor and a ceiling. The ceiling is at about 2.8. And we're at about 2.66. So really good shape on the emergency fund. And we got about 3.6 million in cash for Bill and I to go partying. Just kidding. Next chart. Out of cycle request. And this is another foot stomper. It's important. Bill has the authority to award $750. We as the National Executive Group, which is the top leadership, have about a $5,000, and then of course the National Executive Board can award unlimited. But what we do is allocate money back to each of the chapters for your out-of-cycle request, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. Next. When you make these requests, make sure it's not just because you want to fund a breakfast or a party. Quad A's got to be part of that, and the mantra, the ethics, the values of Quad A need to be included in part of your agenda or whatever you're having for that function. That's the quotation. When you assess whether it's worthwhile for you to come forward and request the funds, you've got to be able to substantiate to us that it's going to do that. Short of that, you're going to get disapproved. And the ability, I mean, that gives you the kind of the limits and what the values for the company, the battalion and brigade size and your chapter level. But the other thing is this lady sitting right here, if you don't turn your after action reports in and you come in for another request, secret ballot, you're not going to get it. So those after action reports have to be filed in order for us to track for the auditors to show why that money was allocated and sit out. So we're doing everything we can to support you. I know you never think we turn it around fast enough, but we work pretty hard at it. Poor Barbara, she's got not just two hats. She's got many hats. And so she turns them around and gives them to me pretty quickly. Sometimes maybe not as quite as fast as you want them. Well, an emergency on your part doesn't necessarily constitute one on our part. Plan ahead. I forget which chapter it is, just came in and laid out their entire year, their request all in one. Perfect. It allows us to budget, gives us the time to allocate and line up those resources. So I encourage you to do that. Next chart. Okay. If anybody can read this, you were drinking with me last night. You can read it in your book. Bottom line is we paid out a little over $150,000 in your out-of-cycle request last year. In 2016 alone, we're up over $50,000. So that's one hand, that's good. It shows you're planning, you're getting them out there, you're getting ahead of the curve. The other hand is get ready. That's the bulk of my charts. I promise to give time back for the long-winded briefers. Of course, you may ask lots of questions, and it doesn't matter how many questions you answer. I can say, I don't know a bunch of times. What questions do you have of me?
Oh, we got one back here.
Good morning, sir. Wade Johnson from Washington Potomac chapter. Earlier on in the presentation, there was a slide that sliced out resources available for membership drives. And in discussion with our chapter president, I just want to make sure or find out, do those monies count against our annual cap that we as a chapter can request from national? They do count against the cap. Okay, thank you.
Remember, these numbers up here are general guidelines. If there's something that's over and above that requirement, then we'll certainly consider connecting.
I think what he's saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the membership monies we get per member has nothing to do with the request for the money for the chapter. So it does not go against the request where they have for $5,000. Totally.
Hold on, we're mixing apples and oranges here. If you're talking about the rebates for the membership meetings, you get so many, you have 100 members, you get $1 per member back per quarter, that type of thing. That's different. If you're talking about you're going to have a membership drive and you're asking for $1,500 ad hoc, that's something that the executive group looks at on a basis of what the return on investment and the benefit is. Years ago when we had, in effect, 3 brigades up at the Fort Campbell between 160th Regiment, 159, and 101st, they would look upon that as perhaps, and this isn't hard and fast, but they would look upon perhaps 3 $5,000 increments because each one of those brigade-size elements were receiving a benefit. But it's up to that. And they're trying to be fiscally responsible. But if you have some real hot idea and you can sell it to them and it supports the Army, Aviation, Soldier, and Family, sell it no matter what the cost is.
There's one other thing, too. We have a standard up there, but remember, not every chapter is a brigade or battalion. We have chapters that are regional. We have National Guard. So, again, we use that as a guideline. In other words, we look at whatever makes sense. So put in what you think you need. The board will automatically come back and say, you got 20 people and you're asking for $5,000. We might give you $1,500 or so. So put in what you guys think you need and let the board sort it out for you.
Again, as Jan said, general guidelines. So your question is more about as you said, that allocation. And it's general guidelines. Bill brought up a good point about the different brigades and the size of the organization, that sort of thing. But we'll consider all that in your request. Sure. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
And your way.
Ron Zemer, Great Lakes chapter. There's a recurring theme here. I know we're only 3 presentations in, but like the meetings, we're doing monthly meetings. We're not sending anything in. We're doing reports, but we're probably not sending the right people. We don't know what we don't know. And communication-wise, I know we've already addressed this where you're working to improve it. But, I'll get an email. Sometimes stuff from Deb will go to my spam email. I'll get a flyer in the mail. Lee won't get a flyer. And it's really 2 of us running this organization. Have you guys thought about, I don't know if you can expand more and make like regional coordination cells, like a region, Great Lakes region, or Region 9, where you have one coordinator reaching out to the 5 or 6 chapters in there, telling them what reports are missing, what they're failing to do. I feel like we're trying to do the right thing, but we're not getting feedback on what we're missing, and I think it's going to hurt us in the long run, and trickle down, it's going to hurt you guys as well.
Good input. Jan's got something.
I would say that in the last 24 months, you've seen an increase as Jan has taken the controls here and done a terrific job with the spreadsheets where we could start seeing, we know there are chapters having events. I've been to them. But, I go back to Barb and I can see a zero in that column. I'm like, wait a minute, I was there. I know they had an event. All right, but it never came back up through our system. So that's what Jan identified early on is the communication issue. I will tell you, when we go to our big national organizations like the American Society of Association Executives, that's, I don't know how many thousand not-for-profits, the opening rate on email, whether it's to board members or to your members, are between 18 and 24%. That means I can guarantee you 4 out of 5 of your target recipients are not reading, seeing, digesting, acting on your messaging. Email is not an effective tool anymore. It just flat out isn't. You'll notice, I'm sure you're getting flyers from, whatever that Bed Bath & Beyond and everything else. Everybody's going to postcards, and some of them are getting stupid. I mean, some of them are 2 feet across. But they know that a postcard has got a 2.5-second half-life before it gets to the trash can. And you're going to see something on either side. So we started doing that again. But as far as chapter communication, I can tell you, General Yellen, who was our immediate past president, would go nuts. He would send stuff to all 70 chapter presidents, and 18 of them would open them. And he was like, I'm contacting directly the chapter presidents. What is going on here? Well, come to find out, they're in spam filters, they're in junk mail, on and on and on and on. So Jan has done a great job, actually literally phone calling. Elaborate on what you did.
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, like for this meeting, we went back to basics and basically called all 70 chapters. I hope I get to a lot of folks early, but it is a problem. But the other thing that you're talking about regional, a lot of associations like AUSA, I actually spent an afternoon with AUSA to see how they do things so we can do things, good or bad, better, always better. But as you saw in one of my charts up front, I put a pie chart up at the beginning of my brief about like-type chapters, like guard function chapters and different things. And so instead of just grouping them by size, we're going to look this year about grouping them in other ways. And I hope to have some kind of a regional, what do you call it, a teleconference or whatever we're going to do, maybe once a quarter, once a semester, whatever, that we'll do. And like Mark Weiss, my counterpart that's doing the guard chapters, as you can see, there's a whole bunch there, him with the state aviation office. So if we can get like people to do like things together, then we're going to look for ways of doing that. And like I said, we're going to try something like that where we might have a call once a quarter. Anybody wants to get on, and it's be these grouping of people to kind of get them regionally grouped. We were thinking of doing something like that.
But your point's well taken. But I also don't want you to think it also behooves each of you to make sure that we have your up-to-date communication information. And when you change a chapter officer, you need to get that communication to us, and you need to make sure that your government spam anti-cyber filter also will allow Quad A emails into you. Even my own, because now that I've become a toaster salesman, I got a bunch of different email addresses, and half the time Barbara's gets kicked back, Bill can't send me attachments. So things like that are going on. So that's going to be a continuous process of updating. Jan's point, I think your point about regionalization would be good, but again, we're trying to make sure we keep down the overhead, and becomes, you put in another layer of bureaucracy in there. Sometimes it can be good, but it also, I believe, I used to live in the Pentagon. I can make it worse too, So we don't want to do that. But your point's well taken. But I do encourage all of you to make sure that we have your up-to-date information and check your spam filters. Yes, sir.
Hey, sir. I think one of the problems Yes, sir. Hey, sir, I think one of the big problems is a lot of the emails come through with a lot of embedded attachments and stuff, and those are the ones that are just getting stripped off a lot of things. If we put them like as a real attachment that's at the top and not all this embedded stuff, I think the spam filters will be a lot easier. That's the problem I'm having.
Yeah, and also, we're going to I asked Bill later on to have Jen, our communications person from the national, hopefully she'll get here at the last thing or during the luncheon, but we're going to try different ways of doing it. And I think a lot of the point, too, is if we can use the web because it's there. We feed out a lot of stuff on there, but again, part of the thing is, even if we have filters, and I agree with you, there's a lot of stuff stripped, but we just got to figure a way to do it. And the thing is, I was really surprised when I went to AUSA the other day that, General Sullivan runs AUSA, and General Ham's taken over from that. And General Ham came out and says, hey, I need to get a reply back to all my 117 chapter officers. He sent it out to 117 chapter officers. They got a reply back from like 90 of them in the first 24 hours. Somehow, somebody's breaking the code. So we're trying to figure out how that works. And I think part of the thing is, as we get good, leadership, sometimes we're sending too much out. We constantly send out things to the whole chapter. I said, well, send it to all the board members. Somebody will get it. Well, the problem is probably everybody does this and says, well, he's doing it. So we just got to figure a way, and we need your feedback to tell us what's the best way to do that. And hopefully this roster we just sent around, you guys all got here somehow, so you must have gotten the info. But we're going to continue to have some more discussions on the communications part.
So we rambled about 15 minutes on your question to basically say, we got your issue, we agree with you, and we're looking for suggestions. If you got suggestions how we can do it better, please give them to us. Who's next?
Just a real quick comment. This meeting number one is real good, which is pretty obvious. I think most of the confusion in terms of people who, somebody says, will you do this for the chapter? Yeah, okay. But there's nothing, everything comes into national. You guys see what's good. You guys see what's bad. If you came up with a couple templates or something that we could grab onto on what's good and what's bad, it doesn't need to be, the last thing we need is more work and 100 pages worth of stuff. But you go with 10 or 15 pages like, here's some things you really ought to be focused on, I think it'd help a lot.
That actually is in our process to do. We actually have, like Dave Cooper was going to talk later on, he put together a packet on membership, exactly the do's and don'ts and how to do it. We have a startup package that somebody did before my time, which has been great. I think it's been in the cobwebs forever because I don't think it's ever been used in years. But when we started getting chapters that wanted a thing, we pulled it out, and wow, it's all written down in a cake book. But we're going to look at, like, if you want to do a golf tournament, or you want to do a scholarship. And during the luncheon, I've asked some of the chapter members out here are going to actually give a little talk on that to tell you what worked for their chapters and so forth. But yeah, we're looking for ideas, and we're looking for some kind of templates so you can say that, out of 70 chapters, 80% of them have a golf tournament. If you've never done one before, here's how you do it, or contact John Smith and this from another. We did this with a fishing tournament, for instance. One chapter was a great idea. Somebody else did it. We connected them. They got the thing, and it worked great. So we're going to look at stuff like that. I don't want to get off subject on a whole bunch of things, the chapters, and would like to just see, do you have anything else for General Crosby on a financial side? Do you understand the process, how to get in, what do you need to do, what's in an after-action report? If you have any questions on those lines, if we could maybe draw it in a little bit to tighten up the shot group a little.
Hey, sir. Mike Smith, Wright Brothers chapter. We're pretty young in terms of revitalizing our chapter, and we've been pretty successful the last couple of years. From experience and friends at Fort Hood or Potomac chapter, we haven't cracked into the how do you, and I don't want to say business development, and I understand industry partners, and we need to stay out of those certain lanes, but how do we crack into increasing money, I guess legally, either for chapter events or to try to get towards that perpetual scholarship level?
Yeah, there's and I'm not the guru on this, on what's legal and what's illegal. The point is we've set up, there's like community sponsors. There's what do we call it, Jan, now, the new community memberships. So there's, and Dave will talk about that more, but there's opportunities for them to come in and donate to some of your events and participate and do those kind of things. I think your chart we saw the other day that we only have 6. Is that right? And we're talking about, we're not talking about Boeing, and we're talking about the barber shop, the folks that you want to be, that your people frequent and become partners and then participate and become part of your team.
We're trying to develop some type of, elevator pitch or sell sheet with different levels at a local level because instead of our chapters, our membership keeping reaching into their pockets every quarter to fund the scholarship, we're trying to find other ways to do it.
Yeah, good. Okay. Anything else for me?